Hello and welcome back to Movie Husbands. Today we'll be reviewing Minari, directed by Lee Isaac Chung. Minari stars Steven Yeun, Han Ye-ri, and Youn Yuh-jung in a tender drama about a Korean family adjusting to American life. Jacob, the father, pursues his dream of producing a thriving farm while navigating tensions with his wife, Monica. Monica's mother soon moves in with them, further upending the family dynamic. The family searches for a feeling of home while navigating this new American life. So Matt, what did you think of Minari?
Minari is just a beautiful film here. I think it's definitely one of my favorite movies of the year. So one of the most beautiful things about this movie, I think, is the relationship between David and his grandmother, Sunja. David pretty much has never met his grandmother before, and she moves in with the family. It's the first time he's ever kind of met her, and he's very apprehensive at first. He doesn't really think she fits kind of like what a grandmother, like the model of what a grandmother should be. But this movie, just like throughout its trajectory, just builds this relationship so beautifully. And this actor who plays David is just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a very kind of deceptively simple film. Maybe it's not even deceptively simple. It's a simple film, but it tells a very simple story, but I think that's not to its detriment. I think that's actually something that's quite remarkable about it, that it doesn't overcomplicate itself. It's a simple story of an immigrant family trying to make their way in America. I think all of that simplicity really adds to this emotional quality, though. There are all these great scenes that the simple story kind of forces the film to rely more on relationships than anything else. And all of these relationships are really what keep the film going. It's what's so interesting about it. There's something so emotional and so human in all of the scenes in this film. It feels so kind of beautiful and lived in and poetic, kind of all at once in every frame of this movie.
Yeah, I think this movie just like so fantastically tackles the concept of the American dream. When we think of the American dream, like you have all these kind of like fantasies about like people who come here with not a nickel to their name and build this, wonderful thing. I mean, that's pretty much what the father in this movie is trying to do. I think this movie just so perfectly depicts what that struggle is actually like. It's like the beauty is found in the struggle.
There's a lot of great symbolism in this movie too. There's some symbolism certainly around water, around Minari, which is growing by the water, by the creek in the film. There's also some symbolism around fire, as people will see that come up one way or another, and how fire kind of is tied to masculinity in this movie, actually, interestingly enough. It's not really a huge theme in the movie, but that's definitely going on. So there's a lot of performances in this film and in other films that feel understated on purpose, and they're the better for it because the restrained emotion actually makes the viewer more emotional, almost like you're compensating for the lack of emotion that they're showing. But it's all underneath, it's all in their eyes. It's not just screaming at the top of their lungs.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I am so excited for our Oscar video where we kind of go through our favorite Oscar movies and who we think is going to win each thing. But all these films this year were just so not really bombastic. They weren't trying to like elicit emotion from you.
This may speak to actually the year, because this is kind of the year of the indie, because a lot of big studio films weren't released this year because of the pandemic. So a lot of the Oscar conversation is around these independent films that may not have had an avenue to the Oscars otherwise.
I think that's just fantastic. I want more of it.
I know, because the only bombastic movie that may get a Best Picture nomination is Trial of Chicago
7.
Which is a good movie. Steven Yeun has been a great actor ever since he left The Walking Dead. He's actually in this South Korean film called Burning, which is one of my favorite movies of the past 10 years that I don't think you've seen. But he has been showing some pretty serious acting chops in the past couple of years, and it's great to see him continue to do that. His role in Burning was quite a bit more sinister, and he was great in that role. And then this role is obviously just all humanity. It's all, tears in your eyes kind of stuff, and he knocks it out of the park here too.
Yeah, I mean, his character kind of opposite his wife in the movie. It's like they are definitely at a crossroads right now because he is trying to build this, and she, right from the moment we get to this house, she is not into this. She's very content living this life of this mundane work at this chick factory where they just kind of like sort the chickens by their sexes. This movie really spends its time kind of giving you an understanding of where both these characters are coming from. You're not going through this movie thinking like, oh, I agree with him or I agree with her. I felt like they just did such a beautiful job of kind of showing you and making you feel for each character individually. Except for the daughter. I felt like her
she does fall by the wayside.
Yeah, her character was just kind of there, and I remember like an hour through the movie just thinking like, are they going to do anything with her?
No, I know. And there's some point, she reminded me of my older sister. She was just like, I'm going to tell mom what you're doing. And it's like, that's the basis of her character, basically. There's not too much more than that. One interesting thing, I was just thinking about the structure of the couple in this film. They have their big blow up like 15 minutes into this movie, and then the rest of the movie is quiet, subtle anger, which is not usually how it goes. Usually it's quiet, subtle anger into the big blow up. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Definitely kind of an undoing of the structure I'm used to in films.
Yeah, and kind of on that note, like when this film does get to its climax, which it does, the climax to me is it's so unclimactic but climactic, if that makes sense. And it only makes sense once you've seen the movie. This film didn't really like capitalize on moments just for the sake of them being moments. It didn't like take an argument like, oh, we got to make this really dramatic. No, and it all that led to was this movie just being and feeling so authentic. And I'm just so glad so many movies this year just felt so authentic to me. I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I agree. And the writing too is very simplistic and very to the point. And it's not like great writing in the way that like Trial of the Chicago 7 is great writing because it's so witty or whatever. But this movie has these really simplistic lines that are delivered in such an emotive way by these actors that you just feel them to your core. There's a scene in the hospital towards the end between Jacob and Monica, and it is just, I mean, it's very simply written, but you feel everything that's under the surface.
And one thing we didn't even talk about too much is this movie's actually really funny.
Oh, it's so funny.
It's so funny.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
Especially the relationship between David and his grandmother.
The grandmother is hilarious.
Oh, she's so hysterical.
Yeah. Are you ready to go to grades?
I am ready to go to grades. I give this movie an A. I thought it was just fantastically directed, fantastically edited, fantastically shot. I am thrilled with this movie. I just enjoyed it so much. It was emotionally impacting, resonant. I thought it had a lot to say about society in a sense, like about the American dream, as I was saying earlier. So I found this importance within it, beyond just exploration of these relationships.
Yeah, I give it an A-. I think it's really good. That simplicity is definitely a feather in its cap. I think a little more depth probably would have gotten me to an A, I think, but it's really hard to find anything negative to say about this movie. I think it's really good.
All right, so that's a review of Minari. Minari is currently in theaters and will be streaming on VOD February 26th. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and we'll see you next time.